I started sharing my screen. Can you please confirm you're able to see the presentation?
Yeah, we can see.
Right. I'll be on mute for some time. It's just 2 p.m. exactly. So we'll give some time for folks to join and then we'll proceed.
So today is which tower, Prasanna? Sorry?
Enterprise compute. Hello.
EC, right? Let me ping everybody. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
So I've written an email, Prasanna. You need to move this meeting to Monday evening, 7:30, starting next week.
Next
Okay,
week.
because there are people from US also who would like to be trained or who would like to attend these meetings so that everybody can cover. So I've sent an email. We'll just give it another 3 or 5 minutes and then let's see. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can begin the session while others will join. Okay, I'm sending everybody a personal reminder also. Okay.
Sure, Pallavi.
Okay.
So let's begin. Today we have a topic on disaster recovery, and we will be speaking mostly related to private cloud because there's too much content and we have time limit of 1.5 hours. So we would not be complete if we add public cloud and other topics related to it. So we are just limiting this to private cloud, or you can say on-premise infrastructure. Yeah, in case if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask that question. We will try to have additional 10-15 minutes for question and answers at the end of the slides. However, we still, if you have any questions or query, I will try to cover that. I've requested a couple of folks from my team, Partha and Ravi. They will be also helping me with this content, and if they would like to speak on any topic, feel free to stop me. And if you have additional knowledge about something which I don't know, so feel free to stop and provide us that help as well. So let's begin. So today's topic is disaster recovery, private cloud. So I was thinking if we can have this training of like interactive. So if you know anything and if you like to contribute, so I will be asking some questions, and if you know the answers, feel free to unmute yourself and answer the question. So let's begin with the introduction of disaster recovery and how I have divided this training in multiple parts. So I have divided this particular session in 3 parts, where we will be having the introduction and need of disaster recovery, where we will be learning some concepts about RTO, RPO, full versus partial recovery. How was the traditional disaster recovery structure, and how the new automated DR and the features and some products which helps to make your disaster recovery practice automated way. We will talk about some DR architectures. I have created one high-level diagram, oversimplified way. So I will try to explain that as well. And we'll also talk about some backup and replication tools in the introduction of disaster recovery. The next part, which I have created, it's specifically about the DR products and solution, and the disaster recovery strategy for virtual machines, physical servers, Windows, Linux, and the appliances. We will little bit talk about the SRM and with vSphere application and the storage application. We will also talk about a couple of products which I have experienced with my previous organization, where I was working as a DR architect for multiple customers, and performed the close to 50 plus DR tests with different products. We will talk about Azure Site Recovery. It used to be called InMarch SR, and we will also discuss some features or some time on Zerto. And in case if we have any additional information about agent-based replication or the storage-based application, we can have some part of discussion there. We will talk a little bit about the automation and scripting, how we can use the PowerShell and PowerShell scripts for disaster recovery purpose, and more specifically with the virtual environment recovery, as well as Linux mounting and other stuff. The third part, which I basically try to make it a mock company where we will try to plan and implement and do the DR configuration for XYZ company, and where we will talk about the how we can select the DR site location. We will talk about the DR strategies and what suitable strategies for the customer's environment. We will talk about little bit talk about the discovery and assessment and how we can use that discovery output for a documentation, and we'll create the we'll talk about how to create high level and low level design diagrams. We'll talk about the DR networking part, the requirement for DR networking from the WAN as well as LAN networking standpoint, and then we'll talk about the infrastructure recovery, where we can discuss about the hardware requirement and software requirement. We will also talk about the application recovery part and how we proceed, or once the DR is implemented partially or fully for XYZ organization, how we can do what would be the best way to do the POC or DR test, and how we can be ready for, we can always be ready for real disaster, and we can make sure that the systems or infrastructures is always DR ready. We will talk about a little bit on disaster recovery life cycle. This is a very important topic, and that's why I kept it last, because many organizations, they implement disaster recovery, but they forgot to maintain it, or they forgot to life cycle the DR. And when they want you to do the DR test, or if they have any actual disaster, they find problem with the recovery, or sometimes they realize that a couple of servers are not protected or not replicated, and they don't have any backup, or they can't restore, or they can't do the recovery for them. So there are a whole lot of topics, and we have limitation of time. So we also have some experts with me, so they can also help us, and we'll cover up some additional points where I have some additional diagrams on Visio, which, if time permits, we'll go through that. So with that, let's get started, and we'll start with the introduction and the need of disaster recovery. So before I proceed, does anybody wants to? I just wanted to understand the audience. So have you guys clear difference between business continuity and disaster recovery? Like, it's a general question. Anybody can answer that. If not, I'll just explain a very short way. Disaster recovery is the set of best practices, tools, process documentation, basically helps to do the IT infrastructure recovery and the application recovery in case of man-made or the natural disaster. However, the BCP is the border term where we talk about not only the recovery, but also making sure that business is continuing. The BCP also includes that making the users available, they're making the not only IT infrastructure, but the location for users, or they can do the work from home remotely, or it's also talk about the user safety or employee safety and or the building and infrastructure safety. So it's talk about whole lot. It's talk about the power and the building and you name it. Everything comes under BCP, and DR can be also part of the BCP practice. This is a very layman language or very high level. I tried to explain the BCP and disaster recovery, but the disaster recovery practice, it's mainly focusing to the IT infrastructure and making sure that IT infrastructure is available in case of natural or man-made disaster. When we do the DR, we have to consider that partial or full environment and infrastructure is impacted with flood or earthquake or power outage, virus attack, or anything, ransomware. So there are many reasons where you can think about invoking disaster recovery. Any questions on introduction to disaster recovery?
Rahim, I just wanted to add, Rahim, some additional point. This is Partha.
Sure, Partha.
Yeah. So whatever Rahim was explaining about BCP, so every business will have a different set of applications, and they will have a different type of services to offer to the customer. So the entire BCP plan will be based on the risk appetite of that particular business. They may be having a sales side, they may be having the service side, and they may be having the manufacturing side, or they may be having the end-to-end also. So for any given specific module or any specific the end-to-end, they will define the overall continuity plan or what is the risk appetite for the entire business. Based on that risk appetite, the entire DR technology or the DR solution, whatever we implement, will be arrived based on that BCP. So BCP is a broader spec, and DR is a subset in that particular BCP. And again, it will go on the specific technology and a specific infra component. So in this particular the session, we are not getting into the BCP discussion. The BCP part is something like we have to, as overall the enterprise architect, we'll have to understand what is that BCP specific for the business overall requirement or the plan for the entire business. And we arrive that out of that, we arrive the technical requirement and also non-functional requirement for that particular BCP for the specific set of infrastructure component. And based on that, we deploy the technology or the solution, DR solution. So this particular, whatever the slide pack Rahim is going to provide, we will focus about the specific technologies, but choosing the technology will be based on the overall BCP plan and what is their overall risk appetite. So that is one highlight I just wanted to highlight. We are not getting into the BCP discussion. We will be only focusing on the various technologies available for infrastructure space and how that DR solution will be implemented using the technology and what we will accomplish out of it. Only that I just wanted to highlight, nothing else.
Thank you, Partha. So let's proceed to the next slide. And in this slide, actually, I wanted to cover some concepts which are all the short forms we will be using for disaster recovery best practices. The first important thing is RTO. You will hear this term multiple times whenever we will be speaking for disaster recovery. RTO is recovery time objective. It's objective what it's basically objective we set to achieve to make sure in case if there is a disaster, we recover the environment in that particular window. So in short way, you can say that application will be down till the time we do the recovery, and that's the maximum downtime will be there in case if somebody invokes the DR and do the recovery for their infrastructure and the application. The next term is RPO. It's a recovery point of objective or a recovery point of object, which basically talks about the data or how old is your data which is recovered at DR site. And both the terms are very important, and you will find now some infrastructure they're calling that they have RTO and RPO in 1 minute RPO or 1 minute RTO, or let's say 30 minutes RTO and 1 minute RPO. That means I'm just talking about 1 minute RPO and 30 minutes RTO. So if if XYZ company declares a disaster and they are replicating their data to their DR site continuously with asynchronous replication or a synchronous replication. And their data is always in sync with 1 minute RPO. And so that means whatever data they have from the disaster, it will be 1 minute older than the disaster time. So whatever recovery will happen, it will happen in 30 minutes. So their servers and applications will be recovered in 30 minutes at DR side. And the RPO means the data will be 1 minute older. So just assume they have a disaster at 12:30 p.m. and they do the recovery. So by 1 p.m., they will be able to log into their systems, and the data which they will be having, that will be 1 minute minus to 12 p.m. That is 11:59 a.m. That's just a general example for RTO and RPO. DR scope, a very important topic where, or very important term, you need to understand this. So the scope is what you define to make sure that it's available in case if you have a disaster. So every organization, they will be having a test environment, the development, and the production. So whenever you plan the disaster recovery, you need to make sure that your scope is containing all the servers or the applications which are required for business continuity or to run their business with the help of IT infrastructure. So sometimes I've seen that people protect their test and development servers as well, though it was not necessary. And they just end up with having additional RPO because that takes additional time for replication, as well as it's put burden on the replication link or whatever types of replication use. It puts the burden on replication link, or as well as you have the extra data replicated to the DR side, so that puts the burden on your storage side. Sometimes I've seen team forget to replicate important production servers, and that's why also the scope is very important factor to make sure you have exact or you have correct number of servers and the applications protected to make sure your disaster recovery functionality or the servers functions or application function well when you do the recovery after disaster. Next concept is failover and the failback. So once you start the recovery at DR site, a company declares a disaster and they start doing the recovery. That process called failover, and failback is the another term when your production site is ready and whatever changes was happened at the DR site or when the business was running, you make sure that changes gets replicated back to the production, or you revert those changes back to the production, and then you do the recovery. That's called failback process. So these are some concepts. Yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention: full versus partial recovery. So sometimes company they have multiple data centers, or sometimes they just get like part of the data center fails. Like for example, their iSeries or their partial vSphere infrastructure get corrupted, or just assume a ransomware attack where their partial applications or some applications only affected. So they just try to do the recovery of those particular applications as per the protection groups. And that time you can call it as a partial disaster recovery. Or sometimes the entire infrastructure or entire data center goes down due to flood or power outage. That time you have to do the entire data center recovery. That's another example of full data center recovery or full data center disaster recovery. So this slide talks about the traditional disaster recovery and the automated DR.
Rahim, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
sorry to interrupt you. Can you please go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Yeah. So this failover you explained is the process to start the recovery to the DR site, means from the DR site we are getting back data to the production. Is that the meaning of?
No. So failover means when you do when you start, like customers or the production team management, they say that okay, we have a disaster and we need to start invoke the DR, and that time you prepare and the team starts working on the recovery. That's entire time called as a failover. So whatever time you do with the failover, it's getting measured under RTO. So and the failback is the once your business is running from the DR side, and just assume the business was running for 6 or 7 days from DR sites until the production server comes online, or power comes online, and then whatever changes was happened those 7 days, right? New customers or whatever updates was happening, whatever things has been changed on the DR side, you re-replicate from DR to, you reverse replicate from DR to production. Okay, and then you do the recovery of that particular. Then again, you do the migration activity or recovery activity at production. That process called failback.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So I was talking about traditional DR versus automated DR. With just a technology change, I still found some of the customers still use part of the servers being recovered with the traditional DR. So it's not like the comparison between customer, it's comparison between the technology. So in the traditional DR, you will always find the servers, like just assume you have a disaster and you're doing the recovery for your servers, and the most famous, or you'll see most of the companies, they do the recovery with the backup and restore. Even the recent experience which I had with my customer, and they had a ransomware attack, and they had to restore all the servers from their backup, and that was the even though they were having some replication configured on the storage side, they never had SRM or another product, but they used a backup as a DR process, and it's pretty recent case. So it's not like old case. I'm just talking about the technology works, the method of the disaster recovery. Only thing or the difference which I've seen with the traditional DR or the technology with the backup and restore, you will have the older RTO as well as old like the RTO and RPO number of hours will be more. Like it can be days or months if you try to do the restore for 1,000+ servers with the backup and restore, and with the application it can be faster. There's another way. The people used to ship the tape to the DR site, and they used to make sure that it's stored, and only in case of disaster recovery, they can use those tapes to do the restore. Like physical server build, if customer has all physical servers in their production, or any organization, they don't have much workload on IT infrastructure. They just running their infrastructure on product physical servers. So that time, you just build the, you just have the physical servers rented or built at the DR site, and you do all backup and restore, or a data copy paste when you do the DR. Another example is build and install. If they don't have any, if customer don't have any backup, so they think about, okay, let's do the build and fresh installation for disaster recovery, because they don't have any backup or no data replication. So they just think they just have to rely on the build and install their applications from scratch. And that's also another example for fresh build I just explained. Automated DR, it's just a new technology or new softwares like SRM and Zerto and Azure Site Recovery, or some products like Cloud Endeavor or a cloud to cloud replication, which comes under automated DR, where you replicate the data from one storage to another storage, from your production to the DR site. You do the agent-based replication. The way I call it's some agent is running on your production server, which keep tracking of your data change or block level data change with Windows or Linux utility, and it's keep sending that data change to the DR site, and then that another application or another agent create new virtual machines or put that data change into the disk which is created at the DR site. It's basically an agent level replication, which also support the change block tracking. And there are some applications like Azure Site Recovery or a Cloud Endeavor or InMarch. They support this agent-based replication. Even I heard about the Zerto. They also have the Zerto agent. If you wanted to replicate your physical servers to DR site, you can use agent-based replication. And it's that agent is keep running in the memory and the as application, and keep tracking of the data change. For that particular word in the Windows systems, it helps to identify which block has been changed, and then it's been sent to the DR site. The next way is the database replication. The database itself has the option to replicate or log shipping or mirror the database. That can be also considered to automated DR partially for the database, or it can be a separate recovery strategy for the database servers. The virtual machine SRM. So basically, SRM is the feature, and we'll talk in detail for SRM. It's a tool to do the automated recovery. Even if you have a VMs being replicated to DR side, the recovery of those VMs is difficult task, and SRM make that easy. Either you use a storage-based replication or the vSphere replication. Okay, a vSphere replication is a tool provided by VMware. If you have a virtual environment, you can replicate your virtual machines to the target site. And in conjunction with SRM, it can be a very good tool, and you can have the RPO of 30 minutes and RTO of 30 minutes, or can be 15 minutes as well. So you can replicate and recover your infrastructure with the help of SRM as well as vSphere replication. And it gives pretty good result for small and mid-sized customers. I've seen most of the large-sized customers, they use SRM with storage-based replication. And we will be talking with the SRM specifically a little bit in upcoming slides. And another technology called backup replication. You might have seen the NetBackup or the AMR backup. They have a snapshot-based backup. We take the backup locally, and then it's replicate that backup to the DR location wherever it is. And then at the time of DR, you just need to make sure build, or you can pre-build your restore backup. You can build the backup or restore infrastructure at DR side, and you can use that backup to restore your virtual machine from there. The other option is to recover to cloud. You can configure your database and application which can replicate to the cloud. I talk about Cloud Endeavor. It's one of the product which I have used to replicate the physical and the virtual infrastructure to AWS cloud, and it was automated. It was with the help of some Lambda and automation. It was automated tool. So we converted that as a one-button disaster recovery tool, and we sold it to many customers. Recently, there has been news that AWS acquired the Cloud Endeavor, and they are working on releasing their own product to replicate data from cloud to cloud and use as a DR product. I just talked about one button DR. I'll just briefly leave it. There have been many attempts, and many organizations provide this service. If you have the infrastructure, pure virtual infrastructure or 100% cloud infrastructure, there are some tools in the market. You configure and you protect your virtual machines, and that will be continuously replicating from one location to another location, like SRM or Cloud Endeavor or any other cloud support, like Cloud Endeavor or any other cloud tool which works with AWS, like Azure Site Recovery. And whenever you declare disaster, you just click on that particular button, and the virtual machines or the you can say applications will be recovered at DR site. Yes, there is some manual intervention will be required, like the application startup or the making changes into the application. But that can be also customized after making some automation with the scripting. Once the VMs has been recovered, those automations and scripts will run and make the changes to the DNS or the drives or configuration of virtual machines and make it suitable for the DR location. Any questions on this traditional versus automated DR? Because the next slide we will be talking about one very high level oversimplified DR diagrams. I'll take it no. Let's proceed. So this is really very high level DR diagram. Just trying to explain in here. This is my production data center, and where my servers. I just mentioned one database and one web server, where your production servers are running, and remote users is accessing those systems from their from SSL VPN or any connect VPN. Whatever VPN you guys are aware about that. And this data centers has a branch office where branch office users use MPLS or site-to-site VPN connectivity with the branch office. So whatever applications, database or any work they do on these servers will get through via the site-to-site VPN and remote users. There might be chances that a couple of servers has been hosted in the AWS. And we are just assuming that we are doing the disaster recovery for this particular data center only. So in case if this data center goes down, your applications or your database will be recovered or recovered to the DR side. To make sure this application is recoverable in case of disaster, you need to make sure this is replicated or this data has been replicated to the DR site. Whether you use backup or restore, or you use SRM, or you use any technology. We are not talking about any technology right now. I'm just trying to explain the simple DR architecture, how the DR architecture works. So this is your overall production infrastructure. It's currently working. And when you plan the disaster recovery, you replicate your backup or your replication or your servers to the DR site. And when your site goes down, excuse me. Sorry. So when your site goes down, you lose these systems, and your remote users, your branch office, or your connectivity with your AWS as well as DR site will not be there. So you cannot do that replication after site goes down. So you need to make sure you have connectivity with your DR site, and you replicate your data to DR location before your site goes down. So that's called as a DR planning. And once you do the recovery to the DR site, you can think about your DR site can connect to your AWS. So whatever servers or applications running on AWS can work with the DR site, and then you can set up the branch office connectivity with your DR site. So your branch office can also reach to the DR site, and then meantime, your recovery team will be working on recovering this database and this web server, so that once they are recovered, they will be accessible through the branch office, as well as remote users will be able to communicate or will be able to access your DR site. So for them, it will be some level of downtime for the application, and whenever remote users will be able to will access the application, they will have the data of that particular time when this data was traveled to the DR site. So if you have replication, continuous replication, synchronous replication, so you can call it it's 1 minute old data or less than that, or sometimes 30 minutes old data. If you have a backup and restore, and it's daily backup, so it can be 12 hours or 24 hours old data because it's restored with the backup. If it's a, let's say you have some agent-based application which has 4 minutes or 4 hours of RPO, then you have 4 hours old data. So that's called RPO, like recovery point object. Okay, what is RTO? RTO is, we talked about when we were talking about terms. So RTO is the time for you to recover these two servers making sure this DR site is connected with AWS, making sure the branch office connected with the DR site, and making the changes in DNS and all those things, and making your users connect to the DR SSL VPN or DR IPsec VPN, and then your users and your branch office can use your DR data. So this is how the DR architecture I wanted to explain. So any questions on this DR architecture? No questions? Okay, Ashish or Partha, do you want to explain anything more in this particular DR sample architecture?
No, I think we are good. We can get into the specific technology and the product.
Okay, so next part or next topic is on the DR products. So there are multiple products which we can use. Due to time limit and my limited knowledge, I just mentioned few of them, but there are many products. If anybody has some additional information, feel free to share here. We will be talking about multiple products here. So let's talk about the SRM first, and then we'll talk Zerto and some agent-based replication where in-merge and backup replication comes. So let's start with the VMware SRM. VMware SRM is basically an automation tool or orchestration tool which helps to do the recovery of virtual machine. Okay, it supports two types of replication. First, it supports vSphere replication. I hope most of us has worked on VMware. So vSphere replication is the replication tool provided by VMware, which one agent or appliance run on the ESXi host, which keep tracks of the change blocks happening on virtual machine and send that change block tracking to the DR site or the replication target which we specify, or the replication data store where we specify, and it's create that VMDK and writes all the data, whatever changes is happening into that virtual machine. And SRM, it just use that changed data and help to do the virtual machines recovery in case if you wanted to do the DR test. Okay, SRM content itself many terminology. So it's not like just you need to install SRM and it will work. You have to make sure you create the protection groups of the virtual machines. Then you create the recovery plan, and then you execute the recovery for those particular recovery plan, which contains the virtual machines or the protection groups. Okay, in next Flu side, we will be talking in detail about SRM, how it's get implemented, and but SRM itself a very big chapter, so it's like 1.5 hours will not be enough, but still we'll try to complete whatever can be possible. Okay, very high level, not in depth. Because there is a separate 5 days course on or 3 days course on VMware SRM, different version. So storage replication. Okay, storage replication is basically there are different vendor like Dell, EMC, and HP. Then we have NetApp. It's quite a famous tool, and they come up with their own replication technology. Like EMC has a SRDF, or I think I forgot. I forgot that another replication tool. Then we have this NetApp that works with SnapMirror, and we have IBM. IBM also use their own replication technology, and IBM has their own storage called IBM V7000, and they have something called V, and then they use their versioning number. But whatever storage you use, the term will be different, but at the end, there are two types of replication. One is the synchronous replication, and another one is asynchronous replication. I don't have any picture to show here, but let me see. I think I have one diagram. I'll explain synchronous and asynchronous replication later in diagram, but just to give some theory about it. So synchronous replication is a synchronization between two different storage. One storage, I'll just use the diagram and then we'll come back. Okay, so just assume, so this is the SnapMirror, which use the NetApp. And this is SRA appliance, and this is your NetApp. So this is just assume you have this your NetApp storage at your production, and this is your DR site where you have NetApp storage, and you have a connectivity setup between them. Of course, the WAN link will be there, and we'll talk about WAN link and the MPLS as well as site-to-site VPN in a networking slide. But I'll just explain that this is the link between the one site to the another site. So just assume you have one site in New York and another site is located in San Francisco, and there is a state difference in between. So you need to make sure that there is a connectivity between these two storage. So when you do the synchronous replication, so data, whatever data is getting written here, will be immediately written at the DR site, and there won't be any lag in between. Okay, oversimplified way. The next way, the next type of replication is asynchronous replication. The asynchronous replication is whatever data is being written here, it will be sent to the DR site or the target vault or target storage, but the production will not wait for DR to commit that data. And so sometimes you might see that data is keep pending at production site, and production site and the DR site data is 1 hour old or 2 hour old, sometimes days old. So in case if this link goes down or link broken or there is a bandwidth issue, then the data will not be reached to the DR site. That time you will be having the RPO of more time, like 2 hours, 4 hours, or days. That's called asynchronous replication. Synchronous replication data or RPO will be in milliseconds or can be in minutes. But asynchronous replication takes much time, or it doesn't care whether data has been committed to the DR site or not. But the synchronous replication will make sure that data is committed to the DR site, then only it will allow the next file to be overwritten or the next blocks to be changed. Okay. There might be, we might have some storage architecture, they can explain it, storage architects who can explain this in better language, but this is very layman language. I just tried to explain to you how the difference between synchronous and asynchronous replication. And let's come back to to the next product called Zerto. Zerto is another tool, and I have a separate slide on Zerto as well, where it's used the agent-based replication as well as ESXi agent, or you can say appliance-based replication. Okay, somebody's controlling my screen, I guess. Sorry. So let's quickly go to Zerto, and or what I would do, I have a separate slide on Zerto, so I'll explain here how Zerto works. Okay. So we'll keep that pending. Next one is agent-based replication. So agent-based replication is the tool called Azure Site Recovery or Cloud Endeavor, which basically you install the agent on your source server or your production server, and it keeps sending that change block tracking data to the DR site. And DR site, there is some additional tools like master target servers or whatever servers being provided by the vendor or that particular company, that's take that data and write it to the virtual machines or into some virtual disks and create the virtual machine out of it. And when you say you have a disaster and you wanted to recover the virtual machine, it's just use that VMDK and it's it's power on that virtual machine and give it for usage, or you can use it. And of course, there is a additional requirement like configuration of the NIC card and the CPU memory. All those things are there, but this can be orchestrated and automated with the help of provided software with the vendor. But I've used the Azure Site Recovery. Earlier, it used to be called as an InMarch, and we had so many customers using that from small to large scale, and it's pretty good tool which use I think I have a slide on that as well. I'll explain that in more detail when we reach to that particular slide. So it uses the vSphere infrastructure at DR site. So even if you have physical servers, it gets replicated and to the DR site with the help of agent. And when you power on at DR site, it use the changes the way P2V converter working in past to converting virtual physical servers into virtual machine, and then it's power on that virtual machine. Pretty good tool. Yes, it was having server, but I've seen very good result for with that tool. There's one more tool called Cloud Endeavor, and this tool is recently being acquired by. Just a second. Just give me 1 minute, please. Sorry. I'm sorry. Working from home. So yeah, I was talking about the Cloud Endeavor. So Cloud Endeavor, it's a very good tool, and it's very famous to replicate your data on premise to AWS, and it's also being used as a migration tool. Also, we can also use it for disaster recovery, and it's do the continuous replication. And I've seen like it supports 30 minutes RPO. I've seen like on paper 30 minutes RPO, but I've seen servers with 5 minutes RPO as well. If you don't have the high data change rate at production, it's keep sending the data to DR sites and updating the instances at Azure, oh sorry, AWS. And we have a backup and a replication. I think we talked on this, like whatever backup, new backup tools comes with the Avamar and NetBackup. They have a visibility to replicate the backed up data to the DR site, so it can be used for the disaster recovery. Only with the backup and replication, I've seen that RTO can be days, or it cannot come to minutes or hours because you can't. Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay, I'll continue. So backup. Whenever we use a backup and a replication, only one part is RTO and RPO is higher whenever we use the backup and replication tools. Because we don't do a every minute or every second backup. It's a daily backup. So whenever we do the restore, it's like old data of 1 day or 2 day, and you will be having the older data as well as also the restore takes time. And before doing restore, you also need to make sure, like whenever we have seen the DR test or actual disaster, you might need to rebuild your backup servers at DR, because in case if it's a ransomware attack, that servers also gets encrypted. So you have to rebuild the backup master server and then use that new backup master servers again, do all the backup catalog configuration, and then use the backup to do the restoration. So in that case, there might be chances that you missed your RTO, and your business will be having an impact of 12 hours or 24 hours of downtime. anyway, we're going to talk about in more details with this particular. I think it's just we are losing time here, so I'll improve my speed here a little bit. So next topic about the recovery strategy and procedure document. Whenever we talk about disaster recovery, we need to make sure that we think about the recovery strategy, and you cannot have the same strategy for all the servers, because if you look at every organization, you won't find organization which is 100% cloud or 100% virtualization. You will have some physical servers. Also, you won't be having 100% Windows and Linux or 100% Linux operating systems. There will be some mix and match operating systems. So you have to define the recovery strategy for virtual machines, and you can use SRM for virtual machines, or you can use Certo for virtual machines recovery, or a DR strategy. For physical servers, you have to rely on the agent-based replication, or you have to rely on the backup and restore. For Windows and Linux operating systems, there might be some kind of limitation from the replication software. So you can think about whether it's a physical server and virtual machine, and then you have to mix and match the recovery strategy for as per your operating system. For database servers, there is a database mirroring and the log shipping and other technology, and some Oracle, and you can also think about like cloud database replication. So that can be also considered as a separate recovery strategy for database servers. The application recovery. So even if you recover the virtual machine or physical server, you need to have a separate documentation and strategy for your application, because there might be different application that has a dependency on another application. For example, Exchange server has a dependency on Active Directory. So you need to have the DR strategy as well as process document, as well as recovery priority set up, so that you make sure that interdependency of the application is being fixed, and your application is usable when you do the recovery. So any Unix boxes like ICCs or any other Unix servers, that's also have to have a separate recovery strategy and a separate recovery procedure documents, because they have their own technology or own vendors or separate vendors for a replication or backup and restore. We'll quickly go to the next slide, where we can use the automation and scripting. So whenever we do the, whenever I've worked on a DR practice, after recovery, there are so many things needs to be changes, or prior to the recovery, you have to do lots of configuration. That time we have to use some scripts to automate the task, or automate things like the installation of ESXi host, or virtual machines recovery. If you don't have SRM, you can write a script to mount the data store to ESXi host and add the virtual machines to the inventory or signature of the data store. These are the terms you might not have heard before if you're not a VMware admin, but there are so many tasks you need to do if you don't have the SRM, and you can do the manual one by one. But if you wanted to do the 100 plus or 1000 plus VMs recovery, and if you have 100 plus data stores, you can't do and go and do the mounting manually. You have to use some kind of script. There, I've seen most of the time you don't have same DNS server at DRSec. So you have to go on each and every VM and change the DNS IP address, or sometimes you have to change the host entries. Linux mount points, because whatever mount points you have at production will be used in production hostname or production IP address of your SAN, NAS, or network mount point. At DR side, you will be having a different IP address or different host name of the of your NFS mount points, or it can be different paths. So you can use some shell scripts, or you can mix that shell script with the PowerShell, and you can have that updated, because whenever there is a DR, you don't have time. People are pinging, and you need to make sure that you match your RTO. If we are service provider, and if customer is down due to DR, we are obligated with the contract to make sure we do the recovery within RTO. And if you don't do that, there might be a penalty. So you need to make sure you can automate the task for disaster recovery. Even application installation or antivirus installation, because I've seen most of the customers, they comes and say, okay, we changed our antivirus vendor because it was not good to, or it was not supporting to stop the malware attack or to stop the ransomware attack. So we need to make sure when we do the recovery, we have to install this malware protector or whatever new antivirus to make sure our recovered system is secure. So these kind of things can be automated and scripting with disaster recovery. Any questions on scripting part? Okay, I'll take it as no. And VMware Site Security Manager, we use this word SRM and Site Security Manager multiple times, and the few upcoming slides specifically on VMware SRM. So this is a automated recovery tool. This is not a replication tool, so just wanted to make sure the replication can happen via storage level replication or the vSphere replication. But Site Security Manager can help you to give you a glance what is protected and what is not protected, how the replication is going, and also it can help you to do the recovery, and you can set up a replication plan as well as protection group. You can do the recovery in group, like your XYZ application, which is 3-tier application database, and your web server. And if you want to group them together and configure their recovery strategy as well as power on sequence, so we configure that in SRM. So wherever there is a DR, and if it's a partial or full, once we run that recovery plan, it will automatically do the recovery as per recovery strategy. It will also power them on as per the requirement, and it also have the option to run some script. So if you wanted to make some changes to the system or some updates, it can be automated. So it can be one button recovery, and you just click on that recovery button, and your application, 3-tier application, will come online and can be usable with minimum RTO, and of course with minimum RPO if you use a storage level application or vSphere application. So it has a compatibility with the different vendor, NetApp, EMC, and IBM. These 3 vendors I've worked mainly. There might be another vendor that can be supported. There is a bunch of vendor compatibility list, so you can do the VMware interoperability or compatibility check with VMware Site Recovery Manager. It can be integrated with VMware Cloud on AWS. So you might have heard that VMware and AWS, they came up with the solution called VMware Cloud on AWS, which can be used as a disaster recovery, or which can be used as a lift and shift if you're planning to migrate your infrastructure, and if you don't want to convert your virtual machine to the AWS instances, and you wanted to have the control or a management control of your virtual machines, you can implement the vSphere Cloud on the AWS, and you can also use SRM with VMC on AWS. So you can have, so you don't have to pay in upfront for physical servers and the storage, and you can just use the SRM as a DR. And at the time of DR, actual DR, if you have, you don't have to pay for additional amount just upfront without requirement. So only in case of DR, you can pay for additional hardwares if you order to AWS. Whatever hardware will be provided or data center will be provided by AWS, and you will have control of the vSphere infrastructure only, and you can also manage the SRM and create the protection groups and recovery plan. And last, this is not a replication tool. How many people they think, okay, SRM is replication tool. So just to clear, I just put that point. Let's just see this one diagram, how the SRM works. And this is again an oversimplified diagram with NetApp. I just showed you some back. So this is how your storage is basically being connected. And this yellow line is showing the replication that is happening with the WAN connectivity. So you just think these are two data centers. One is located in New York, another located in San Francisco or any other location, geographically separated. And you can have that replication setup. And once this is replication setup, you will require, so you already have your production infrastructure running with vSphere, and where you have these ESXi and virtual machines running, and you manage this infrastructure with your vCenter. To have the SRM, you also need to invest at DR site. You already have a storage. You also need to invest for compute because you need to have ESXi to run that workload. Then you need to make sure you have DR vCenter is there. You need, because there is a requirement for two separate vCenters, like one production vCenter and the DR vCenter. And then you install the SRM. SRM is a site recovery manager. It's an automation tool for a recovery, configuring replication, and creating operation groups. So you use this SRM, and with the help of SRM and vCenter, you do the site peering. Once this site peering is done, I know I'm going very fast, but just giving high level. So once this site peering is done, then you can create this virtual machine protection group. Even to protect this virtual machine, we need to make sure this VMs has been replicated to the DR site. Okay, and this SRM and vCenter, how they come to know that how the replication is good or not. So there is an appliance called SRA, Site Recovery Adapter. It's basically a tool provided by any storage vendor. So if you use NetApp, NetApp will provide SRA as a virtual machine, which basically work with vCenter and SRM. They exchange the API. They use, so SRM use this SRA to communicate with the storage, and SRA tells that storage is replicating good. This is also a SRA, a DR site, which communicate with the DR vCenter server, and it tells whether replication is good or not. And when you do the DR, when you do the recovery, so there are some steps which is being done by this SRA and SRM server. So I'll tell you, just assume this site goes down. There is no automation here. So just assume this prod site is down and you have everything replicated here. So if you don't have this SRM and SRA, still you can do the recovery with replicated storage. Okay, like what storage needs to do is storage admin has to present the LUNs to the ESXi host. Okay, then vSphere admin or a VMware admin will use those LUNs, replicated LUNs, or the snapshot in case of DR test, replicated LUNs or snapshot. It will use or mount them as a data store. Okay, once it see as a data store, then it will go inside of data store, go inside of virtual machine folder, and it will select that virtual machine, right click on it, and then add to the inventory. And then you will see that VM as a part of inventory. Then you can power on, you can migrate, and you can perform all the activity with the help of vCenter. But this was all a manual efforts. The SRM do all those stuff with the help of automation, because SRM has this SRA. So when you do a DR test, or you say do the recovery, the SRM gives command to vCenter, or vCenter gives command. They both gives command to SRA appliance. Okay, SRM tell which VM or which protection groups or recovery plan needs to be recovered. So SRM send the command to SRA appliance. SRA appliance send the command. It checks, okay, this particular protection groups is part of XYZ replication target or storage groups. Then it send command to storage, and storage create that snapshot, whether it's a DR test or it present the original LUN to the ESXi host. Then ESXi, again, SRM send commands to vCenter to use those LUNs and mount the virtual machine to the inventory, or mount those LUNs and add the virtual machines to the inventory and power on the virtual machine as per the recovery plan and recovery sequence. So this is how SRM help to do the recovery in case of disaster recovery, oversimplified way. Okay. There might be some questions. There's another example. Just to explain how the storage replication works. Okay, and I think this is with the SRDF replication, where we have we don't have SRM here, or we can have SRM server somewhere, but this is how the storage replication works. So you have EMC VMAX server which support the SRDF replication. They replicate data from source to target, or R1 and R2 copy. And we have this ESXi host. This ESXi host, production ESXi host, is using those data stores to read write data for the virtual machines. If your production side goes down, same task we can perform manually. Like we can present this replicated LUNs to ESXi host, add the virtual machines to the inventory and power them on, and then we can use it. So I have some more slides on the networking part, where we will talk about this IP network and the replication network. Only if time permits. We have some 17 minutes in hand. So any questions on these two slides or these two diagrams?
Yeah, just want to touch upon a few points with respect to the same SRM, Rahim. So, yeah, so we might, we would have seen the VMware, how the VMware evolved in the market. So starting from the 1, 2, 3 version and 4, effectively the VMware started SRM starting from the vSphere 4, right? So when they started with SRM, the acquisition layer or the product, they started with the storage only, especially the SRA adapters only. And the technology at that point in time, we were using that SAN product or the NAS product for any of the VMware environment. Wherever we build a VMware environment, we use a SAN or NAS based on the architecture. If it is a small footprint where that IOPS is not that demanding environment, where we use that NFS or the NAS environment, where that IOPS and the BCP or the DR also high scenario, where we use that the SAN with a high demanding IOPS requirement. So that is the reason SRA concept came into the picture first. And SRA also involves the additional licensing, because we are using the storage replication adapter from the respective hardware vendor. So we have to pay for the license. So that is something like additional expense. So for any VMware design, wherever we are using that SRM, SRM anyhow comes with our Enterprise Plus license. So, but for SRA adapters, we'll have to pay for the license to the specific storage vendor. So that is something like additional point which we need to remember or keep in mind. So this entire strategy will again derive from our original business requirement. Suppose if the business requirement is something like very critical and the risk appetite is very less. So then in that case, we have to recover the VM fast. So when we need to recover the VM fast with the automated manner, so definitely the SRA is something is the way forward. So this is something like we cannot change after we deploy all the architecture. This is something the DR architecture also needs to be thought through along with our original design phase. I mean, when we are documenting the non-functional requirements for any of the given IT infrastructure, we have to capture this DR related requirement also. And our solution should incorporate that bill of material or the components in that architecture. The second point about Rahim also talked about vSphere replication. So now everyone would have heard about the concept we are hearing more hyper-converged infrastructure, right? The hyper-converged infrastructure primarily, whatever we see in the recent days, it's picking up in the market very fast because that hyper-converged infrastructure is using the vSAN technology. So the more the vSAN technology implementation or deployment is in the market, the storage replication adapter may not be applicable for that because the vSAN technology itself, it's a different, it uses the local disk, and again, where we specifically use that vSphere replication to do the VM replication from site A to site B or primary to secondary. So that is another one point we have to consider. So the solution component or the solution architecture definition itself will be based on the overall BCP or business non-functional requirement, and based on the non-functional requirement, the architecture will be decided. That architecture will identify whether we go with the hyper-converged infrastructure with a vSAN architecture or whether we go with the vBlock or VCE environment, so that we can scale and we will, that will meet that required IOPS down the line. So this is the basic thing we have to bear in or keep in mind while we designing that solution, and also I understand the difference the DR technology, how it is going to work with respect to vSphere replication and SRA. This is just an additional point which I just wanted to highlight.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Partha. Thank you. And yeah, shall we proceed to the next one? Sorry. Yeah. Zerto. Hey, Partha.
Yeah.
Just quick one. I think we have total 27 slides and we are on 15 now, so 16. So we might need another session because I think I will not be able to cover in detail. I don't want to hurry. So can we like have additional one session for upcoming slides? Like we will cover till 8:30, but
Yeah.
we won't be able
I
to
think
cover
we
everything.
can stop here because this Zerto itself, it's again, it will take 15 minutes, right? 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prasanna, is it okay if we split this session into two, or is it something like?
Yeah.
Like we'll complete the SRM and then we'll start with Zerto with the next session. Will that be okay, Prasanna?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so there are some steps I have mentioned for SRM implementation if we need to do that. Very high level steps, and we start with the vCenter and SRM installation. Specifically, you won't have the DR site, so you have to install the vCenter and the SRM server at DR site, and you also need to install SRM server only at production because you already have the production. vCenter is already there, just need to install SRM at production. Then you configure the network. And when I say network, so there can be two networks, one dedicated for ESXi, or sorry, vCenter and SRM communication, and there can be a separate network for or MPLS network for storage replication, or you can use same network for SRM and vSphere communication and the storage communication. Like storage communication required high speed and high bandwidth connection, and this because that's keep on sending data from prod to DR and DR to prod when we have the failback. But we have to plan and configure that networking specifically for the WAN side. Then once the network is implemented and the storage replicating we have to pair these two sites. So I'll go back to this site, and this vCenter and this vCenter product and DR vCenter connection, this connectivity called heartbeat connectivity, or can be called as a site pairing connectivity. And this is the another connectivity where storage communicate with each other. So whether it's a SnapMirror or a EMC SRDF connection. And once that is done, we have to configure SRA adapter. So as said by Partha, that if we have vSphere application, we don't have to configure this activity, because vSphere application uses vSphere link to communicate and replicate the data. And also it sends the commands directly to the vCenter. So we don't have to do any communication between vCenter and SRM to the storage. So these steps can be skipped when we do the vSphere application. Once the replication is completed and the storage is in consistent set health, or the consistency is healthy, we can configure the protection groups and create the recovery plan. In the recovery plan, we can configure the recovery order and specify the VM can be powered on and power off, and recover at what time and how. Once that is done, we perform the DR test, and that can be isolated environment where only VMs will be recovered. They won't talk to outside environment. So your production setup will be untouched, and whatever VMs, Active Directory servers, Exchange servers, or SQL servers you recover at DR site, it will be isolated and it won't reach to your production. So there won't be any impact to your production system. Once DR test is successful, we do the validation of recovery, like all the VMs are recovered successful, all VMs has the correct IP address, and if you need to change the IP address, we can specify in the recovery plan. We can also validate all the drives are mapped, everything is correct. We can check and configure any post recovery script, and then we can once that is done, in case we have a disaster, we can think about failover and reprotect. That's why I said if needed, and then we can talk about failback. So we already talked about failover and failback, that if how we do the failover. So in failover, there won't be a test. The VMs will be recovered, and we need to make sure, like network team make sure that they have the correct VLAN assigned, and that VLAN mapping and IP addressing configured in the recovery plan for actual recovery. And when you do the DR, then you run your business from the DR site for a few days, few hours, or as per the requirement. And once everything is ready at production, then you re-replicate that data and re-protect that data from DR to production this time, and then you do the failback activity. So this is how the SRM high level we implement, test, or keep ready for the DR test or actual disaster. As we discussed, we'll talk about Zerto Azure Site Recovery in upcoming topics. We'll quickly have a question and answers. We have 6 to 7 minutes in hands.
It looks like no one has any question. Does it mean this topic is not addressed or all your expectation, or this is something like there should be two things, right? One is that DR is something like you all know already, and this is not fulfilling that expectation, or something other way. It is not at all understandable. So it should be in that way, right? Either this extreme or that extreme. So definitely there will be a questions, especially DR, because DR is a big topic, and especially everyone will face the challenge, especially when they do the DR. So
Yeah.
So no one has questions or any clarifications or any doubts?
So Partha, I have a question. Yeah.
Yeah, Uday.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, Uday.
Yeah. This SRA adapter is coming for different products. Like how, like, is it product specific or
Yeah,
Product
it's product
specific.
specific.
product specific? Okay.
When we are buying that SAN storage, we will have to select that particular licensing for VMware.
So actually, SRA comes free. You buy the license for replication. So like EMC comes with this what do you call it?
SRDF.
SIDF. Yeah, when you do the SIDF, you when you buy, so you have your one box, you don't need to buy the application. But when you have another box, you buy another box. You buy for SIDF application, you pay for that particular license or feature, and then you get this solution enabler. So okay, so solution enabler is the SRA name. So it's not only used for SRA, but it's also used for a management purpose as well. And it also comes, there is also one more component called gatekeeper, which basically used for authentication purpose and sending command. So it uses solution enabler and gatekeeper, and that sends all the commands coming from vCenter and the SRM servers, and it send that to the storage. Same way, so every company, they have SRA agent. They every vendor, they provide the storage. They have a separate SRA agent with nothing but the API they use to expose to the vCenter.
So is it mandatory to have an SRA with the SRM actually to do enable this replication?
So
Or-
if you have storage level replication, you need
Yeah.
SRA, and if you have
Okay.
vSphere application, which explained by Partha, so
Yeah.
when you use vSphere application, you don't need SRA.
Okay. Okay, Abdul Partha. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So if I go to my index or the way which I had divided this session. So part one was the introduction and part two was DR products. Out of these DR products, we reached to the SRM. We just need to talk. There are only two slides basically, and one is for the Zerto and another one for Azure Site Recovery. Okay, because this particular session will not be enough for all the products. Also, one single product will be having its own detailed level of knowledge sharing. So I just wanted to give a high level of those two products, and I think we have only 3 minutes pending. So we'll continue with Zerto and AWS. Zerto and Azure Site Recovery part, which is in March, agent-based application, and then we'll also talk. We'll have a separate in-depth understanding about implementing the DR for XYZ company or any mock company, where we can think of, we'll start the activity from the DR site selection and deciding the strategy for XYZ company, and then it can be a little bit interactive. So we just have I'll just give some glance of the slides. Like we need to talk on Zerto, Azure Site Recovery in March, and we'll talk about this is our third part where we are implementing the DR flow. So where we will be talking about the DR scope, strategy, networking, the DR test, application recovery, and then we'll also talk about the life cycle, DR life cycle. And these are the pending slides where we'll talk about discovery scope, DR site selection, the documentation part, hardware requirement, networking, infra recovery, and application recovery, DR test, virtual actual versus actual DR, and DR lifecycle. and then we end with this slide. So we have now we are on slide number 16. We have 11 slides to go. I think the next session can be 1 hour, and I think we will be able to complete this. So Prasanna,
Okay.
so
Yes,
just 1
yeah,
minute
yeah.
pending, so I'll give back to you. I'm sorry we was not able to complete within given time.
Okay. We will do it on next 21st this month.
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
sure, absolutely, yes. So on 21st we'll do this. Okay, I would like to thank you for joining and giving your precious time for this training. Prasanna,
Thanks,
thank you so
Abdul.
much.
Thanks, Abdul.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All.
Partha.
Thank you all.
Thanks, too.
Thank you, Ravi. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks, Partha.